Now, moving on to maybe the number one story of this week. The thing, if you get it right, could yield humongous results. That's the Chiefs' backfield. Isiah Pacheco is out 6 to 8 weeks at minimum. So the soonest we will see him is likely week 10. And we are now wondering, Samaje Perine, Carson Steele, Kareem Hunt now. That's why I'm happy wait until today to do this show, because that does change things up quite a bit. But who is going to be the guy, if any of them, and why does it matter so much? Should we get it right? Well, let's look at the history of Chiefs running back 2. 2022, CEH gets hurt. McKinnon in 6 games as the starter, 20 fantasy points per game, 5 targets per game, goes absolutely ballistic. We saw McKinnon also go crazy in 2021. CEH gets hurt, and in those playoff games, he averaged 18 points per game and nearly 6 targets per game for Jerick McKinnon. 2021, Darrell Williams takes over as the starter, and he averages 17 points per game and 5.4 targets per game. Then we had Dame Williams take over as a starter the year before, 24 points per game and 5.5 targets per game. Can you sense the trend? The number 2 back has been a fantasy monster, and in particular, gotten some sweet passing game usage. And that's why if I had to pick any one of these guys, it would be Samaje Perine, given the pass-catching role he was already starting to climb his way into, and now I think that's only going to get elevated. Last year, Perine was the number 1 running back in yards per route run with 2.22. He was running back 7 in targets per route, and he also has been a 75 or higher PFF graded pass protector in back-to-back seasons. He's already ticketed for that third down role. We saw that start to get elevated more and more as Perine has had more time with this team. Don't forget that he got cut on the third final week of the preseason, and literally within a day, Andy Reid had this guy on the phone, brought him right in. He saw and incited that Jerick McKinnon role as something we want him to fit into, and that has typically become the lead back in the absence of a starter, because the Chiefs go so pass heavy in these type of situations when they lose their number 1 guy, and they ultimately just want someone to keep Pat Mahomes upright, and ultimately yields really strong value for that back. And it's not like Perine has never been a capable workhorse. In fact, in 2022, when he was with the Bengals and became the starter, he averaged 23.4 points per game in his 3 starts while Joe Mixon was out. 15 touches, 82 yards, and 3 touchdowns, 30.2 fantasy points, 21 touches, 4 catches, 93 yards, and a score, 19 fantasy points. And then 27 touches, 6 catches, and 155 yards, 21 fantasy points. Those were his 3 starts. He was on pace for nearly 120 targets and 85 catches. It's not pretty, it's not flashy, but he just churns and is always falling forward. He's a strong bulldozing guy that averaged 11 or running back 11 in points per touch when he got work that season. Ultimately, I think Perine is the guy I'd go with, given the pass-catching skill set, given his history as a featured back, given the fact that, Kareem Hunt, he does throw a wrench in these things, but ultimately they had all summer they wanted to call Kareem Hunt. And it was when Perine got available, the quickest thing they could do was dial him up. And they already talked about how Kareem Hunt is going to be on the practice squad for at least the first week, potentially the first few weeks here. But we'll talk about him in a second. Let's talk about Carson Steele, who seems to be the guy that everyone is going to first. He had more carries so far, Wolf. He was the one that got the carries at the end of the game when Isiah Pacheco was out. I don't know that I really care about 9 carries on the season. I get it. Perine has exactly 0. But what has Steele done on those carries? 27 yards, 3.0 yards per carry, lost a fumble. In the preseason, we got some good glimpses, and I don't want to discredit Steele. If I can't get Perine, I certainly am more than happy to add Steele, because there is some upside here. On the preseason, he did rack up 87 yards, 2 touchdowns on just 11 carries, 7.9 yards per carry. That was that 37-yard touchdown skipper. Sure, came against accountants and fourth stringers, but ultimately it was really impressive tackle breaking, and Steele did have some really impressive tape coming out of Ball State. Again, not the most prestigious university here, but had 1,722 yards and 16 touchdowns on 318 touches. Goes to UCLA in his junior year, 1,010 yards and 8 touchdowns on 184 touches in this committee backfield. Looking really solid, looking really capable as a potential bell cow there. And we did have Andy Reid say Steele, he's kind of a tweener guy, heck of a running back. You see him out here running the football, does a pretty good job. What he did at Ball State was unbelievable. UCLA, unbelievable. We're maneuvering around and seeing if he can do the fullback stuff. Looks like so far he can, and then we'll just see from there. So, yeah, maybe a glorified fullback, but he has gotten some carries so far. He has been the one to step up. But I'm seeing a lot of people like, oh, it's the bulldozer. That's who they want. Well, Samaje Perine is heavier and ran a faster 40, plus has the track record, plus has the pass back blocking skills. So to me, I don't think this is just a guarantee that, yeah, because Steele has the 9 carries so far this year, he's automatically the one that comes in. Sure, he played more snaps in week 2. Again, the fumble, some concerns there. I do think also Perine coming new to this backfield, maybe he was still learning the ropes. So I do lean with him. Of course, though, Kareem Hunt coming in here, he had 9 touchdowns last year. We know that great history here with Andy Reid. Only Jamal Charles, who has 19 20 PPR point games under Andy Reid, only he has more such games with Kareem Hunt coming in second at 11 20-plus PPR point days under Andy Reid. Now, this is not the same Kareem Hunt. That was years ago. He is certainly slower, certainly not as dynamic, but he does have a 3-down skill set. He does have familiarity with the Andy Reid scheme. But again, Pete Sweeney tweeting out and saying that, yes, they're signing him. They liked how he looked physically, but they're still going to take a few weeks to get him back into game shape. So we have some time here for either Perine or Steele to separate. Again, my bet is on Perine. And if they don't, then, yeah, maybe Kareem Hunt does come in here and ultimately take over the majority of that work. I still don't buy that, though. I think if Perine shows well, or whoever gets the featured role, again, I think it's Perine, will ultimately get the chance to hold on to that for the time being until Isiah Pacheco returns. All that to say, so how do you pay this out? What do you bid on these guys? Had Hunt not signed here, I probably would have said 50 to 60% minimum on both of the lead guys here. More of it going to Perine, maybe a 25 to 30% bid on Steele. But the ceiling does feel a little capped. It is a little bit scarier here now that Hunt has arrived. So I would recommend right around 25% or so for Perine, right around 15 to 20% on Steele, and then maybe about 15-ish, maybe 10 on Hunt himself is how I would play this out. But if you're desperate at running back, let's say you lost Pacheco himself, maybe you have, like me, McCaffrey on the IR with no Jordan Mason. What was I thinking? If you are desperate for a running back and you need somebody, it's probably worth taking that 30, 35%, making sure you get this guy, because it could ultimately be a true feature back. And again, 20-ish points per game. We've seen it from McKinnon, Darrell Williams, Damian Williams. The number 2 running back with the Chiefs have thrived before, and one of these guys could be the next one to do it, even if there's also an ugly range of outcomes here as well. What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.